The past holds many secrets, and we're here to uncover them. Join us on this epic historical journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and be part of the discovery. Music playing.
Hundreds of tons of stone shaped into the image of a mighty pharaoh. An incredible testament to Egypt's golden age. I believe that right here, at the feet of the massive colossi of Memnon, we can truly see the legacy of Amenhotep III. In my opinion, Amenhotep III was the greatest pharaoh of ancient Egypt.
He ruled at the height of Egyptian culture and civilization. It was the Golden Age. He represented everything that made ancient Egypt shine. This great civilization thrived because of its unique belief system. Their quest for a perfect afterlife helped them endure disasters and dark times, allowing Egypt to emerge as the most powerful empire in the ancient world.
In this episode, I'll cover what I believe was Egypt's greatest era, the New Kingdom. What an amazing chamber! This was a time of unmatched luxury, stunning design, and pure magnificence. Isn't it just beautiful? But like all good things, it couldn't last forever. Ironically, Egypt's strong religion became its greatest weakness. I'll explore how the priests became incredibly wealthy and how their power struggles with the crown tore Egypt apart. This conflict turned the Golden Age into a time of decline, corruption, and eventually collapse.
By looking at Egypt's brightest stars, I'll dig into what really happened during the glittering New Kingdom. Welcome to my story of ancient Egypt. Applause. The New Kingdom goes back about 3,500 years, to the time of Amenhotep III, when Egypt's expressions of power and faith reached a whole new level.
I've joined an international team of archaeologists. We're excavating one of the massive monuments Amenhotep built, a historic temple. Now that you're here, you can really imagine what it must have felt like 3,500 years ago, when this place was buzzing with construction. All around are statues of Amenhotep III. There are hundreds of them. And today, as archaeologists piece them back together, it's literally history rising from the ground bit by bit.
Back in the Pyramid Age, royal tombs and temples were combined, but 1,300 years later, they were built separately. This marked a new era of wealth, represented best by the greatest dynasty of all, the 18th dynasty, the age of Amenhotep III. For centuries, the only visible remains of Amenhotep's temple were his two massive statues. But now, archaeologist Dr. Hurig Saruzian and her team are finally uncovering the full glory of this incredible monument.
Touch it. It feels like glass. Yep. The temple covers more than 86 acres. This wasn't a tomb like the pyramids. It was a huge complex. The largest ancient temple ever built. It's unbelievably massive. And that's just the main temple. Imagine there were other temples, processional roads, avenues lined with sphinxes, archives, workshops, treasure storerooms, pools, gardens, a priest's house, and administrative buildings. This was a vast city at the heart of the capital. Enormous.
This stunning structure was built as a place where the pharaoh's spirit could be worshipped forever. His mummified body was buried nearby in the Valley of the Kings, but during his life, permanent priests worked in the temple, all under the pharaoh's command. Giant statues of Amenhotep stood at the main entrance. Behind them were a second pair, then a third. His image was repeated all throughout the temple complex.
I hope they invent a time machine someday. I'd go back.
Can I come too?
I'll go with you. We may not have a time machine, but after 15 years of work, we're starting to see glimpses of the temple's former glory.
These statues were originally meters high, but standing next to them feels incredibly intimate, like you're actually holding the pharaoh's hand. One of the best preserved statues near the temple's second pylon is of Amenhotep's main wife, Queen Tiye. She's still standing here, miraculously surviving all the disasters that hit the temple.
So it really did protect her for centuries, didn't it?
Queen Tiye was carved to only reach up to Amenhotep's lower leg. Her small size exaggerated the pharaoh's godlike stature. These huge statues weren't just monuments. Each one was worshipped to ensure the pharaoh's soul would live forever as a god.
That's a huge surprise. And Dr. Harig saved the best for last. A dress.
Oh, wow. It flipped over. It's Amenhotep's 3-meter-tall head. This is a 3-meter-tall head of Amenhotep, carved from the finest white alabaster.
Oh, wow. I don't even know what to say. Over the years, I've seen so many depictions of him, but rarely anything this stunning. Just look at him. Look at that nose.
This is an absolutely incredible sculpture of Amenhotep's face. I've never seen anything quite like it. With hundreds of statues like this, Amenhotep wasn't just showing off, he was multiplying his image as Egypt's most powerful god, bringing light and life to the world. Whoever controlled Egypt's religion controlled Egypt, and with that came enormous wealth. Amenhotep was covered in gold from head to toe. He handed it out as gifts to his court, but he also used it as a powerful diplomatic weapon. His clever use of Egyptian gold was recorded on scarab stones like this one. Think of them as the pharaoh's press releases. He had them carved with updates and distributed across the empire. In this case, it's about a royal wedding. It records Amenhotep's marriage to a Syrian princess from the kingdom of Mitanni. It tells how he sent gold to her father, and in return, the king sent one of his daughters to marry the pharaoh. Kind of like a royal bride exchange, you could say. The inscription says her name was Kiluhepa, and she arrived from Mitanni to Syria, with no fewer than 317 women attending her. Amenhotep was clearly impressed. He added a note. What a marvel. This was just one of many diplomatic marriages, but they were a smart way to keep peace and prosperity. Amenhotep knew how to use Egypt's greatest resource, gold, to get anything he wanted and maintain his place as the top ruler of the ancient world. Gold brought peace to Egypt's borders. Under Amenhotep III, the empire stretched from what's now Syria all the way to modern-day Sudan. But inside Egypt, gold had another role. It could even buy you a shortcut to the afterlife. That's clear from a stunning treasure housed in the Wigan Museum, a breathtaking golden face. It was originally part of a woman's coffin. Her idealized features were preserved so her soul could recognize her in the afterlife.
Isn't it beautiful? It's obvious this woman was someone very important, with high status and serious wealth.
And even though we may never know her name, it's clear she spent a fortune preparing for a perfect afterlife. Covered in gold leaf, she gazes out at us with eyes made of alabaster and black obsidian. From this, we really get a sense of how the ancient Egyptians thought. Because even though this face is so beautiful, it was buried in a simple grave, literally in a pit in the ground, not meant for human eyes, but for the gods and the spirits of the dead she hoped to join. That's why her skin is golden, because the gods had golden skin, and she wanted to be recognized as one of them, to be welcomed into their eternal care. To the Egyptians, there was a sacred pact between them and the gods. It's what made to their land and their empire so powerful, so unique. During the Golden Age, this divine contract shined brighter than ever. With so much of Egypt's wealth poured into beliefs about the afterlife, and more gold being buried with royal mummies, securing their tombs became critical.
So they created a secret burial site for Egypt's pharaohs on the west bank of the Nile, far from grave robbers, the Valley of the Kings. It became essential to bury every royal mummy securely, following a tradition believed to stretch back to the dawn of time. Each pharaoh became a royal ancestor, and their collected spirits were seen as the very foundation of Egypt itself.
Once the royal tombs were desecrated, that event broke Egypt's spiritual connection with its ancestors. So, to prevent it from happening again, New Kingdom pharaohs chose to be buried deep in a remote valley in tombs carved into the rock. This became the most sacred place in all of Egypt. These elaborate preparations for the afterlife also fueled a booming economy. Just like in the Pyramid Age, the business of death shaped the lives of many everyday Egyptians. It wasn't just tombs to carve or temples to build. There were statues, shrines, sarcophagi, coffins, and all kinds of burial goods to make. And all of that required incredible resources, from alabaster to granite to gold.
What you're seeing here is a copy of the oldest surviving geological map in the world. It dates back to around 1150 BC during the reign of Ramses IV. This map was a guide to stone quarries and gold mines across 15 kilometers of Egypt's eastern desert. And get this, it's so detailed, it's basically like a modern geological survey. The different rock types are marked in color. The large black areas represent sedimentary rocks. The pink zones show igneous rocks like granite, and the smaller symbols point to gold mining sites.
This map shows extremely precise speckling. Those are the gravel zones known for their accuracy. It was drawn for a specific quarrying mission when 8,000 men were sent into a desert valley about 130 kilometers from Thebes to extract stone for royal monuments. But what really makes this map special is that it connects us to the everyday people the pharaoh hired to build tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Archaeologists discovered it in the workers' village of Deir el-Medina, a settlement built specifically to house tomb builders, architects, artists and scribes along with their families. It must have been a lively place full of noise and color, kids playing in the streets, deliveries coming in, and all the everyday sounds and smells of life.
One of the workers who lived there actually drew the map. And now we even know who he was, a scribe named Akhenaten. His handwriting is instantly recognizable across many other documents, poems, prayers, maps, tomb inscriptions. And thanks to a little inscription bearing his name, we even know where he lived. Here's where Akhenaten lived. This was the scribe's house. He was one of many skilled workers who rose through the ranks in the generations following Amenhotep III. Eventually, he became the chief scribe of the entire village, so he was a big deal.
But his story is also quite sad. As he got older, we know his eyesight began to fail. One of his prayers survived, in which he makes a deeply personal plea to the local goddess Meretziga, who was believed to live atop the mountain nearby. He begs her, saying, "My eyesight is fading. I see darkness during the day." For someone like Akhenaten, a scribe and painter, this must have been heartbreaking.
Here, he's shown in a depiction honoring Meretziga. Both he and the goddess are symbolically drawn without eyes. It's hard not to feel the emotion in that image. You can imagine him in his later years climbing up to the flat rooftop, eyes failing, trying hard to focus on his work, mixing paints, drawing lines, writing hieroglyphs, relying on the full sunlight just to get through the day. But just like the pyramid builders before him, Akhenaten must have felt a deep sense of purpose.
You can picture him and his neighbors working together in Deir el-Medina, united by one goal, building the pharaoh's royal tomb. The pharaohs of the New Kingdom had created a bold new image for themselves. These grand tomb projects required new cities full of workers and a strong economy to support a much bigger vision, not just for life, but for the afterlife too. But the spiritual beliefs that brought Egypt to its peak also created a dangerous imbalance.
In the New Kingdom, most of the Egyptian state had become centered around Thebes. The west bank of the Nile was mainly a land of the dead, while the east bank was home to most of the living and to Egypt's main state temple, Karnak. As Karnak quickly grew into the largest religious complex in the ancient world, its power grew too, and so did the influence of its priests. To really understand what was happening, we need to go behind the scenes. Thank you.
I've been allowed to walk through an ancient corridor once reserved only for Karnak's priests. Up here, one step, another and another, it leads above the main temple gate and gives you a view over Karnak that few people ever get to see. Just look at that. You could fit Notre Dame Cathedral and St. Paul's Cathedral in here and still have acres left over. It's massive.
Inside Karnak, a series of chapels, shrines and sacred spaces covered an area of more than 250 acres. This was the religious heart of Egypt for nearly 2,000 years. Why was it so huge? Because every pharaoh poured a fortune into this temple, filling its treasury with gold and war loot. Each one also wanted to leave his mark by building his own halls, shrines and obelisks, trying to outdo the kings who came before. But it was all done for the greater glory of Karnak's main god, Amun.
Over the centuries, Amun rose from a local Theban deity to the official state god of Egypt. Worshipping him became the engine that powered the entire nation. That meant every pharaoh had to keep Amun happy, offer him their wealth, fulfill his needs, and that responsibility fell to the high priest of Karnak, who performed sacred rituals in the temple's inner sanctum, ceremonies so secret only royal family members were allowed to witness them.
We're standing now at the heart of the Karnak temple. This is where the god lived. His divine spirit resided inside a sacred statue. The original statue wasn't very big, but it was made entirely of solid gold. It would have been kept inside a small golden shrine, hidden behind a pair of tiny doors. And every morning the high priest would come in and wake the god's spirit. He would be welcomed. Then they'd wash him, anoint him with perfume, paint his eyes, dress him in different kinds of linen robes, and decorate his statue with little pieces of jewelry. After that, the god would be ready to enjoy his day.
Amun was offered daily meals. High-quality food, roasted meats, bread, fruits, vegetables, and even wine and beer. Clouds of incense were used to chase away evil spirits. Musicians and dancers entertained him. The belief was that by keeping the most important god satisfied, Amun in this case, everything would go well. The Nile would flood every year, the sun would rise every morning, and Egypt's greatness would be preserved.
The high priest's direct access to Amun made them the biggest beneficiaries of Karnak's growing wealth and power. This calm, peaceful lake was where the temple priests, both men and women, would bathe twice a day and again at night to stay ritually pure in the eyes of the gods. They were known for their cleanliness and set themselves apart from the rest of society with a distinct appearance achieved through their special daily rituals.
Part of their purification routine involved using various tools to alter their appearance. One of the most important things they did was remove all their body hair, both male and female priests, using razors like this one. They shaved their heads and bodies every day to stay clean, free from lice or anything that might compromise their hygiene. It was also essential for their mouths to be completely clean, since they would be speaking in front of the god. So they used something surprisingly modern, natron salt, which is basically a type of bicarbonate, much like modern baking soda toothpaste, to keep their teeth clean.
But their efforts didn't stop there. They also wore sandals woven from reeds and pure white linen robes. After all of this transformation, they could admire themselves in polished metal mirrors, seeing how different they looked, because it was important for them to remain separate from ordinary people. To the ancient priests, cleanliness really was next to godliness. They considered themselves God's chosen people.
As the wealth and influence of the Karnak priests grew, their power started to rival that of the king. They were powerful not just during the day, but even at night. One of those priests was named Necht. He was a priest of the hours of Amun, which basically means he was an astronomer. At night, he would sit on the flat roof of the temple, which served as an ancient observatory, and track the movements of stars and planets across the sky. By doing so, Egyptian priests could determine the dates for important religious festivals and events.
But the real takeaway is this: Karnak never closed. It was a 24/7 operation. That means the priests were always present. They were always watching. Aware of the potential threat these powerful priests posed, Amenhotep III tried to keep things in check by placing his own relatives in high temple positions to ensure their loyalty. But those behind-the-scenes strategies were about to fall apart.
A new pharaoh had arrived, Akhenaten, the son and heir of Amenhotep. But unlike his father, Akhenaten wasn't a diplomat. His passionate ambitions were about to push Egypt into an era of political and religious extremism.
Early in his reign, Akhenaten found a bold way to assert his authority over the priesthood. He built a new and controversial temple complex right there in Karnak. What you're looking at here is something highly unusual. It's part of a wall from Karnak Temple, but not part of the traditional Karnak structure. It was a separate section, built just slightly away from the rest, and it was a radical new building.
It wasn't built from the giant solid stone blocks typical of old Karnak. These were much smaller blocks, easier to work with, meaning the temple could be put up almost overnight. But the most shocking thing was the artwork. This new temple started to dismantle Egypt's traditional religion, replacing its many gods with just one god. If you look closely, the imagery is totally different from before. There's no Amun anywhere. The main god of Karnak isn't even shown in his own temple.
The god depicted here is a form of the sun god, called Aten. You can see his rays reaching down, ending in little human hands giving blessings to the central figure. That figure is not the high priest of Amun. The priest no longer controlled Karnak. Amun himself had been replaced. Now Aten, the sun god, was in charge. In fact, Egyptian life had been turned completely upside down. Whereas court officials used to bow respectfully before the pharaoh, now times had changed. In these images, people have their faces flat in the dirt, completely prostrate before the king. They lay flat on the ground before him. That moment marked the beginning of a new era.
It was an era where the only way to connect with God was through his chosen representatives, the twin rulers, Akhenaten and his wife and co-ruler Nefertiti. When the priests objected, the royal couple shut down Karnak, expelled its priests, and seized its treasury. Then they moved the entire royal court 400 kilometers down the Nile, away from Thebes. In less than 10 years, they built a brand new city, what we now call Amarna. Its palaces, temples and tombs were covered in images of Aten, the sun disk god. The old ways of worshipping many gods were over. Now it was all about the sun, honored daily with songs, prayers, and extravagant offerings.
But the couple's vision of a utopia came at a high price. When Akhenaten died after 17 years on the throne, Egypt was bankrupt. His son became the next pharaoh.
Though he ruled for less than a decade, he would go on to become the most famous pharaoh in all of Egyptian history, Tutankhamun. The treasure discovered by Howard Carter in 1922 is the most iconic archaeological find of all time. Tutankhamun's golden mask has come to symbolize ancient Egypt itself. So familiar, yet, like many of his treasures, it holds a long-buried secret.
I visited the Griffith Institute at Oxford University to look at the most detailed records of his burial. In this first set, we have all of Carter's notes, diaries, and journals. And down here are the original glass negatives taken by Harry Burton, captured on fine glass plates. These are the very negatives that Carter's photographer used to document every step of the 10-year excavation.
Here's the first glimpse they had of the mummy. It shows the linen shroud covering the third inner coffin. It's like the family had just finished their farewell. They laid down flower garlands and keepsakes before finally sealing the tomb. What a privilege it is to see this in black and white, so deeply moving.
Despite his legendary wealth, Tutankhamun wasn't a powerful or important king during his life, but his early death, after just a decade on the throne, gave the priests of Karnak the perfect opportunity to erase all traces of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and the controversial Amarna period. These amazing images from his burial treasure show exactly how they did it.
On Tutankhamun's famous golden throne, he and his wife Akhenaten are shown together, but all is not what it seems, as modern research has revealed. Look at the back of the queen's head, where her wig originally was. It was trimmed down. The same goes for Tutankhamun's crown. A new piece was added. Tiny changes like these were key to re-identifying the figures. By altering the imagery, the throne was reassigned to Tutankhamun.
But the biggest clue to who originally owned the throne is in the god shown above the king and queen. Even though Amun's name appears on the throne, the artwork and the sun disk Aten take center stage, clearly showing this was once a royal object from the Amarna era. So the two figures once thought to be Tutankhamun and his wife were likely Akhenaten and Nefertiti.
More evidence comes from the most famous artifact in ancient history, the golden mask of Tutankhamun. Or is it? Recent research has focused on a feature that's long been overlooked, the clearly pierced ears. That's because the mask was probably made for someone else. Studies suggest that Tutankhamun stopped wearing earrings after childhood. By the time he died around age 20, he was never depicted with pierced ears. This mask wasn't made for an adult male pharaoh. In fact, when you compare the gold on the face to the rest of the mask, they're different materials. There's clear evidence of welding. It now seems that Tutankhamun's face was grafted onto an older mask, a mask originally made for a ruler with pierced ears, a previous ruler who may have been a woman, who may have been Nefertiti.
In fact, it's now believed that around 80% of the objects found in Tutankhamun's tomb originally belonged to Akhenaten or Nefertiti, all of it thrown together in what seems like a kind of spiritual cleanup. To the priests, it was all tainted gold. So Tutankhamun's burial became the perfect chance to bury the unwanted past, for good. The city of Amarna was abandoned and torn down, but the memory of everything it stood for was buried along with it.
Subscribe to uncover more forgotten history with us. Like, comment, and support our journey to reveal the truth behind ancient mysteries. See you